and welcome to another Super Deluxe Gamescast review. I am one of your hosts, John, and I've got my producer, Derek, here with me. Derek, hello, sir.
Hi, howdy. How it go?
Well, you know what, Derek? There's two things I love in life:
Yeah?
steak and Marvel. And since I just had a big, delicious steak,
Well, there's two things I love in life, and those are fish and Capcom, so I guess we have to fight about it.
you know what? I mean, since you don't have any fish on you and I'm all out of steak, I guess the only things left to talk about are Marvel versus Capcom. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the Marvel versus Capcom fighting collection. Capcom very generously gifted us a code for this. So thank you, Capcom. We greatly appreciate it. I'm a big fan of the Marvel versus Capcom games.
Same.
Like the Capcom fighting games, period. But this is kind of a collection.
Let's kind of talk about like where we come in from our perspectives, because here's the thing. I think uniquely, especially like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is clearly the star of the collection, has both a lot of love from a casual perspective and from a hyper competitive perspective. So,
Yes.
where are you coming from as somebody who was already excited for this collection?
So, I love fighting games. I'm not like a competitive guy. I'm not a Justin Wong for sure. But I really enjoy fighting.
You're not making people run up them refunds?
No. I'm not people. I don't have quarters lined up against me on the other side of the arcade cabinet. That being said, I'm decent at them. And I've been playing the Capcom Marvel games ever since, like all the way back to Children of the Atom, So I'm a big fan of these games. When I heard that there was a collection coming out, I was very excited, as were a lot of people. And before I get into the rest of that, like Derek, where are you coming from? Like what is your perspective here? What is your background?
So I actually was that kid who had the quarters lined up, right?
Oh, God, you're such a nerd.
I know. I was good at fighting games from a young age. I actually started with like Tekken, but I fell in love with Capcom's fighting games and played a lot of Street Fighter and a lot of Darkstalkers and a lot of Marvel vs. Capcom. And for a good chunk of time, I actually played like locally in Street Fighter 4 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And did like a pretty decent job on a local level, right? I TO'd for the fighting game scene in tournament organized for the fighting game scene in Louisville in my 20s. And I love fighting games, but one of the problems for me is that as I've gone older, my hands do not move the way they used to, and no amount of practice is getting me anywhere close to as good as I used to be as a, teenager who barely practiced.
That arthritis, man.
I mean, not exactly. It doesn't matter. I'm not here to sad post about my old man hands. But yeah, I come from a little bit more of the sweaty side of things, admittedly. But like, I also like, I'm a huge Marvel Comics nerd, and Capcom's always been one of my favorite gaming companies, and I love this series to death. I'm a Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite defender.
I want to emphasize something you said for people who may not know you. Derek is an incessant Capcom fan. He won't shut up about Capcom. Like he's not lying. Like
Capcom and
half
Nintendo
of Derek's
are my two great
personality
loves in the gaming industry, right?
Half of Derek's personality is Capcom.
It's not that bad. It will be when Monster Hunter comes out, but
yes, oh my God, don't get me started on that. So let's talk about the collection here, right? We got X-Men: Children of the Atom. We got Marvel Superheroes. We got X-Men versus Street Fighter. Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. Marvel versus Capcom Clash of Superheroes, and the one that everybody is really here for, which is Marvel versus Capcom 2.
Marvel 2, baby.
But also, let's not forget the first home release of the Punisher beat 'em up. which we will get into. 'Cause I got a few things to say.
I think
about that.
honestly, what's crazy is I think that the three things out of this collection people are the most interested in are X-Men Children of the Atom, very specifically as like the origin point for all this, and like just a super interesting fighting game to play that is gorgeous in terms of its animation.
Yeah. I mean, all of these games have top-notch pixel animation.
They do, but like you get to a point in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 where a lot of characters had a lot of frames of animation cut because there's so many characters that they just couldn't fit like all these, individual frames of animation in the memory of the game. So that, and you've got 3-on-3. So it's just, back in the day, a lot more to be written to the game's memory. So like you could look at a character like Sentinel and X-Men Children of the Atom and compare them to Sentinel and MVC2, and they are miles apart in terms of animation. But
For
MVC2 has 56 characters, right?
And it's got a lot.
52.
There are quite a few.
I don't know. It's embarrassing that I don't remember the actual number because that number should be like a part of my.
Hold on, I can actually. I'm going to count them up.
I think it's
hold
52
on.
characters.
Hold on. We're going to settle this right now. Okay, we're going to settle this right now.
Cool. Let's count live on an audio podcast.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
You can
16,
Google
17, 18,
it's
19,
56
20,
characters.
21, 22. What, man? You're ruining my groove, Derek. You're yucking my yums. You're yucking my yums,
It
Derek.
is 56. I actually did get it right the first time, just off the top of my head.
Well, whoop-de-doo for you.
But that, and then, like you mentioned, the Punisher. Because the Punisher is this weird artifact of, like, a game that I don't think a ton of people played in arcades necessarily, and has never had a home release to my knowledge, but is, if I remember right, the start of Capcom's partnership with Marvel. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Worse.
So here is the so like mechanically, I don't feel like we need to get too deep in the weeds here. These games have not changed. They still play impeccably. From Children of the Atom all the way to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, these are some of the most mechanically sound fighting games in existence. And what I really love about all of them, especially Marvel vs. Capcom 2, is the fact that, like you said, Derek, these are great fun for casual fighting fans and also hyper competitive fans who compete at on a global or national level. These games are as complex or as simple as you need them to be, and they accommodate. They're very good at accommodating both high and low level play.
I mean, I think the nice thing is that because they're built on a framework that Capcom was using for games like Street Fighter Alpha and Darkstalkers, like you can pick up any of the Marvel vs. Capcom games from Children of the Atom up through Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and they feel sort of familiar, right? There is a ton of depth, and being good, especially at Marvel 2, requires so much work. But I think casually, if you just get like a couple buds playing, like it's not hard to pick a team of 3 cool characters and get in there, and if you understand like Ryu's fireball motion, then you can play this game. Like it's not like modern Street Fighter games where you have all these extra mechanics layered in. It's pretty to the point.
So here is where I think the weakness of this collection comes in. And
okay.
Well, and I am sure that it's not a weakness. I think it's a weakness, but not to anything's detriment, if that makes sense. And what that is let's face it, 99% of people are here for Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Yeah.
And they will, I'm willing to bet that a lot of people will probably only they will not touch the other games, or they will play them for a few minutes, go cool, and then go back to Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Which is a shame because I think
Marvel vs.
gameplay-wise, I am in love with Marvel vs. Capcom 1, and I'm a rarity in that regard. But
right, well I'm saying, Derek, you're weird.
I am
you're
a weirdo.
Most people.
Yeah.
But I think we can both agree that most people are here for Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and I do wonder if this collection would have been better served as a collection of all these games, but MVC2.
No, because then everyone would have just bought MVC2. This,
but what I'm saying is, you release MVC2 on its own like 6 months later.
I don't think, because here's the thing. I think MVC2 is the thing that gets people to buy the game. And even if people only dip their toes into the other games, this collection still serves as a museum dedicated to the early years of Marvel and Capcom's partnership, right?
I agree.
The art galleries and all that stuff. Like it's meant to show you everything that brought us to Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
I guess what I'm saying is I feel something like the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection is a much more balanced collection of games, if that makes sense.
It is, because there's reasons why you might want to play Street Fighter 2 specifically.
Right.
There's reasons why you might want to, like, if you told me to pick a Street Fighter game, there's reasons why I would go to Third Strike sometimes. There's reasons why I might pick Alpha 3 sometimes. There's reasons why I would pick, Ultra Street Fighter 4. Like, the games did swap their rosters around enough and swap mechanics around enough and experiment enough that each generation of Street Fighter feels different. Versus Marvel vs. Capcom clearly built its way in an almost linear fashion from Children of the Atom up to MVC2. And MVC2 is one of the most legendary fighting games of all time. So it's the draw. It's the thing that you're going to spend 90% of your playtime on.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, and look, like, I'm not saying that when I say it's a bit unbalanced, I'm not saying that the rest of these games aren't good. They are. But like you said, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is just one of those legendary games. Like,
for casual fans who don't have like a specific obsession with fighting game mechanics, who go, no, man, I actually really want to play Marvel superheroes because this character is just whack to play in this game. Like, most people are going to pick MVC2 because there's not a single character in any of the other games that is not also in MVC2.
Correct.
They're slightly different because, of course, changes to movesets and balance over time. But like Venom, if you want to play Venom, guess what? He's in MVC2. If you want to play as Juggernaut, guess what? He's in MVC2.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's an amazing collection of games that are just, I think, slightly overshadowed by the presence of one legendary game.
I think that again, for me, I'm coming at it from the perspective of this being games preservation, right?
No, and that I totally get.
Yeah,
totally.
Because Capcom could have just said, "Here's MVC2," but instead they put the effort into doing all of these games, and
they could have. And to be honest with you, like I kind of expected them to. So the fact that we got a collection of all these games is a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I respect the absolute hell out of it.
Now,
and they're not straight ports either. They're not straight ports. One thing I want to bring up is, hiccups. In particular, I love the addition of like some of the changes they've made to the training mode for these games that like show hit and hurt boxes on characters, for example. If you're somebody who wants to play these games and get better at them, being able to visibly see like hit and hurt boxes in real time in the training mode it's such a crunchy detail that casual players are not going to care about. But if you want to get good at Marvel 2, stuff like that helps.
So, on the flip side, there's another game included in this collection.
Oh no.
It's a game that I streamed, much to Britt's delight. I know she was texting you. And that is the side-scrolling Punisher beat 'em up. It's the first time this game has been released on a home system, and kind of wish it had stayed in the arcade. It's not great. It doesn't like, I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds on this, but it doesn't play well. A lot of this doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I'm going through a back alley, right? And I bust open a box, and there's like a fucking jousting lance. And I'm like, what? And Derek, after several levels of guns and bats, and like, I find a jousting lance, and I just like, I had to pause the game for a minute, and just like, I was so puzzled. I was like, why is this here in an alley? Like, who was like, oh yeah, I got my gotta hide my jousting lance in the box in the alley. I don't want anybody to, like, I picked this up at medieval times, and the wife's not gonna let me keep it, so I'll put it in the alley for a while, and in this box, and until I figure out how to explain this to Marcy.
It's so funny because
like,
Capcom
it's just
made so many like legendary beat 'em ups of the time. I mean,
Yes.
Final Fight, Alien versus Predator, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs,
Knights of the Round.
Captain
Knights of
Commando,
the Round
Knights
is such
of the
an
Round. God, that is them, huh?
yeah.
I had a weird soft spot
Dude,
for Armored Warriors.
The freaking the Dungeons and Dragons side scrollers, legendary stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
So like, I think I haven't played the Punisher. Is it at least like decent to play? Because all the complaints I've heard you make are basically that this is very weird as a Punisher game, that like it just doesn't.
It's not. It is the most basic beat 'em up possible, and like the sound is like so. Punisher's one special move, as far as I can tell, is like a leg sweep, and he turns pink when he does it, and he does this scream that I can only describe it as like a man waking up in a bathtub full of snakes.
That's what I sound like when I
Like,
move my legs that way too. So
yeah, he's just like, he does his leg sweep. He goes like, oh, and I, like, dude, the first time I heard that in game, like, I was laughing so hard I put the controller down. like I was just, that's what he sounds like when he does his leg sweep. He goes, oh, like it's just, I made that sound once. Once when I was in college, I got really stoned and fell off a roof. And I made that noise on the way down right before I hit the ground. So it was actually like very, very traumatic for me to hear that in game.
yeah,
But yeah, it's not great. The end. So it's 2-player. You can play as the Punisher, and if you play 2-player, you get like David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury. And the end of the game is literally there's a cutscene right before the final stage, which is like the Kingpin's hotel. They're like, Kingpin's in this hotel. He's like, I'm gonna make my presence known, and he just fires a bazooka at the hotel.
yeah.
And I'm like, fucking Frank, what about all the goddamn kids and families in the hotel? What are you doing?
Kingpin.
He's like, yeah, Kingpin, I'm coming for you.
I did see him shoot that guy.
What's that?
I said I did.
Yes,
I did
no,
see him just
dude,
shoot
he
that guy.
straight up executes a man. Like, dude. So it's like the second boss of the game. You're like, Frank's like, yeah, if you tell me what I want to know, and maybe I'll let you live. And he's like, okay, man. Okay, listen. Kingpin he's he just got back from dinner. He's at the hotel. Frank's like, thanks, and just blows the guy's head off. And I was like, holy shit! Like, damn, Frank. Like, for as weird and goofy as this game is, it got super dark. And I know it's the Punisher. Like, I know that's Frank Cashle's shtick. But this is like a cabinet beat 'em up from the mid 90s or early 90s. Like, I was not expecting that. That one blew my mind. No pun intended.
Yeah. It's a very silly game. From what little I watched. Yeah, man. The Punisher, I think, again, is thrown in because it's. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the beginning of Capcom's partnership with,
I think so.
But
like,
it's an oddity
one of those
because
oddities.
it's a set of Marvel and Capcom fighting games, and then here's this beat 'em up.
Yeah, and it's like you could go.
Where you play as the Punisher, who has
every.
never been in Marvel vs. Capcom. What's up?
Well, like, I mean, he's blowing away captives, man. Like, you don't want the Punisher in Marvel vs. Capcom. He's just gonna. He's like
They had
no,
Chris
keep him away
Redfield
from there. Yeah, but at least Chris Redfield doesn't murder people who surrender to him.
I mean, Punisher
don't think he
doesn't
does
either
that,
normally, but I digress.
I mean, Punisher. I think Punisher absolutely does.
Oh yeah, bad guys.
Yeah, but at any rate, yeah, no, it's a great collection. Like you said, like, I think the most important thing here is games preservation.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think
these ports run beautifully. Right.
They run beautifully. They look great. I have played it both on PC and on Switch. Because I forgot that I'd pre-ordered it for Switch. But it runs great on both. Looks great on both. And it's a very important slice of gaming history. Like, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was one of those generational games that people still talk about, almost 20 years later.
Yeah.
So like, it was one of those games that defined Capcom in that generation and continues to have a lot of reverence toward it today. So all in all, I think this is an excellent museum for the collaboration between Marvel and Capcom, and the Punisher's there too.
And he did show up.
He's there. He's doing his best.
That's what I was about to say. Wow.
Derek, you got anything else, pal?
No, I'm just glad that this happened. I was worried
Me
that
too.
Marvel 2 was dead. And it's been great to see it come back. It's been great to see the fighting game community pick it back up. It's cool to see a lot of like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 content on YouTube and Twitch again. It's been the revival that the game needed, just making it available, it turns out.
Yep.
To a wide audience. And it gives me hope that Marvel and Capcom can continue talking and we can maybe see another one of these in the future. I would love that.
Let's get some of those Capcom and Marvel beat 'em ups next.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But no, maybe not.
Well, whatever.
That's all I got.
That's all I got. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you again to Capcom for providing the code. We greatly appreciate it, and we appreciate all of you listening right now. So if you don't already know, you can find us live on Twitch every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, twitch.tv/official SDGC. I'm John, this is Derek, and we want you to remember that kindness costs nothing. Take care of each other.
Bye-bye.